نستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. In last week's lesson, we concluded by looking at verse number 25 of Surah Al-Baqarah. And in this particular verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving glad tidings to the believers and to وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ and to those people who do good deeds, لَأَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارِ. That for them will be gardens, and beneath these gardens will be rivers which will flow. Now, as mentioned last week, that the topic of discussion from this particular verse is with regards to Jannah and paradise. And I mentioned last week that it is the belief of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah that paradise has already been created. That paradise and similarly Jahannam and the fire of hell, they have all been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I quoted a hadith from Sahih al-Bukhari where we were looking at a dialogue between Jannah, between paradise and the fire of hell. Jannah saying that only the weak and the humble enter me, whereas Jahannam saying that only the arrogant and the tyrants are entering me, and so on. So from this particular dialogue, what we can derive and deduce is that Jannah has already been created by Allah, and similarly Jahannam has already been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we also mentioned that it is also the belief of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah that every believer and every mu'min, every Muslim will enter Jannah. That every believer who believes in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who believes in Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as the final prophet, every mu'min and believer will enter Jannah. However, when will they enter? Then there is a difference. If there is a believer who believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he did a lot of sins in this world, he did a lot of bad deeds, there were a lot of shortcomings on behalf of this person, and he passed away without seeking tawbah and repentance. So the scholars have said that this person will firstly enter Jahannam, will firstly enter the fire of hell, and he will be in fire of hell for only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, could be hundreds, millions of years, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And after he has compensated for his ill actions, for his shortcomings, then this person will enter Jannah and will enter paradise. Whereas you got another person or another believer who believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and also in this world وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. He also did good deeds. So such an individual will be given Jannah and paradise through the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the very beginning. He would not need to go to Jahannam to cleanse himself and to purify himself. Instead, this person will enter Jannah and paradise straight away. So these were a few things which I mentioned last week. In today's lesson, we'll be looking at Jannah and paradise in further detail, and in particular some ni'mah and some blessings of Jannah, and who can enter Jannah, who can't enter Jannah, which kind of people can enter Jannah and paradise, what kind of deeds and actions lead you to paradise. And at the end we'll finish up by looking at an issue here which some people ask, and that is with regards to children, that what will happen to children. Then there's two types of children. You've got the believers' children, the believers' offspring. You may have a child who passed away at the age of 4, 5 and so on. So where will he go? Will he go to Jannah? Will he go to hell? And similarly we'll also look at children of the disbelievers. That disbeliever child, like age of 4, 5, passed away, he or she, the boy or girl, then what will happen to that child? Would he or she enter Jannah or paradise, or would they go to hell? What will happen to them? So these are some issues, inshallah, which we'll be looking at the end, and inshallah then we'll conclude the tafsir of this particular verse, i.e. verse number 25 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Now, one thing regarding Jannah and paradise is that Jannah and paradise is something which is unimaginable. We cannot imagine Jannah, we cannot imagine paradise. And it's like, I gave this example last week as well, that many people will be going for Hajj, And people will ask that, what do you do in Hajj? Tell me, how's Hajj, how is Hajj? Arafah, what is Arafah? How does Arafah look like? They will say, Mina, how about all these tents, millions of tents, how do they look like, and so on. So you can give them all the advice. You can tell him, oh, it look like this, the roads will be like this, the tents will be like that. But unless they actually experience it for themselves, they won't fully comprehend and appreciate the beauty, you could say, or the picture of Arafah or the picture of Mina. So exactly same thing is with regards to paradise and Jannah as well. That many hadiths, very descriptive hadiths of Jannah and paradise, telling you that in Jannah you'll find this, in Jannah you will find that. But unless a person goes there, unless a person actually experiences it for himself, then only then he can value and truly appreciate the blessings and the value of Jannah. And this is what is mentioned in a hadith Qudsi of Sahih and Muslim, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that He has prepared for the believers such a place that وَلَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ, that no eyes have ever seen, وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ, no ears have ever heard of, وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ, and it hasn't passed through any human mind, meaning that no human mind has ever imagined of or cannot imagine. So that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for us in Jannah and in paradise. Now, one distinctive feature about Jannah and paradise is that Jannah and paradise has 8 doors or 8 gates. And the gates we're talking about is not like small as the gates in front of the mosque car park. These are like massive gates. And it comes in a hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari that the distance between one gate post to the other is the distance between Makkah and Busra. And Busra is a place in Syria, in Sham. So the distance between Makkatul Mukarramah and to Syria, that's how big is the distance between 2 gate posts. And in another hadith of Sunan al-Tirmidhi, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the distance between these 2 gate posts is equivalent to 40 years traveling. So from one gate post to the another, it takes around 40 years traveling. So you can imagine how big these gates are, and obviously if the gates are that big, then imagine how big Jannah and paradise will be. Now there are 8 gates in Jannah, and the scholars have written that, and these 8 gates, by the way, is named after a particular ibadat and is named after a particular worship. And depending on which worship this individual did in this world, or depending on which kind of worship he was inclined to, he will enter Jannah and paradise through that particular gate and through that particular door. So the 8 gates of Jannah or paradise are: number 1, the first one is called Babul Iman, the gates and the doors of Iman, meaning a person who had complete trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who had complete faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who totally submitted himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fully obeyed the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like there are many examples in this world as well, that if something happens to us, we blame the worldly causes. We say, oh, because of him, or because of that, or because of this, and because of that. But when you look at it, it's all down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if a person's faith is very strong, he will say, oh, the good which I've got is from Allah, and the bad is also from Allah as well. He doesn't point fingers at other people, or because of the rain, or because of, I don't know, this job, or, I've got this. No, he will if his faith is strong, he will say that all this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that person whose faith was very strong, his trust and reliance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was very strong as well, then this individual will enter Jannah through Babul Iman and through the gates of Iman. The second gate of Iman is called, the second gate of Jannah and paradise is called Babul Jihad. Jihad here means a person who sacrificed his life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who basically went out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sacrificed his life. And he can also take the literal meaning of jihadi as well, and that is that he sacrificed his nafs and his desires only for deen and only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a person who did that, then this individual will enter Jannah through Babul Jihad. The third gate of Jannah is called Babu Kazimin al-Ghayb, which means an individual, a person who suppressed or swallowed his anger. There may have been an occasion where somebody did something to him, somebody hit him, somebody harmed him, somebody said something bad to him, and if he wanted, he could have hit him back, because that is insaf, that is adl. He could have done something back to him as well. But he didn't, he swallowed his anger and he kept it inside him. Sometimes it happens like, something happens at work and, the boss or the manager does something and he could have got angry. But instead, no, you just do sabr, you be patient and you swallow that anger. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that individual who depressed his anger, who swallowed his anger, who suppressed his anger, will enter Jannah through the gate of Babul Kazimin al-Ghayb. The fourth gate of Jannah is called Babul Rayyan. And it's mentioned in the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari that no one will enter Jannah through Babul Rayyan except those who observed fasting. That those who kept Roza, those who fasted, whether in the month of Ramadan or extra optional fast, like the one which is coming up 9th of Zulhijjah, Yawm Arafah, or the Muharram fast, the extra fast and so on, even on the Mondays and Thursdays, which is considered optional to fast. This person, he fasts, why? For sole pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this individual will enter Jannah through Babul Rayyan. The fifth gate of Jannah and paradise is called Babul Zakirin, i.e. those who remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who did kasrat zikr, who constantly, abundantly remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Either the various tasbih after each farz namaz, or just constantly said Allah, Allah, whether in their hearts, whether in their minds, whether verbally and so on. So those people will enter Jannah through this particular gate and this particular door. The sixth gate or the sixth door of Jannah is called Babu Sadaqah. That person who gives charity, sadaqah. Person, he gives charity to a poor person, he gives zakat, or to, for example, build a mosque, to build a madrasa or anything like that. So that person will enter Jannah through Babu Sadaqah. The seventh gate or the seventh door of Jannah is called Babu Tawbah, i.e. the doors of repentance. I.e. a person who committed sins, shortcomings in this world, then when he seeks istighfar, when he seeks repentance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that person will enter Jannah through that particular door. And the final gate of Jannah is called Babu Salah, i.e. a person who read abundantly optional prayers. Along with the Fara'id, he also read many optional prayers, the Nafal prayers during the day, Nafal prayers during the night. He constantly, abundantly read all these optional prayers, so that person will enter Jannah and enter paradise through Babu Salah. So these are the 8 doors of Jannah, and as I mentioned that depending on which action you are, which ibadat you are inclined to, if you are inclined to say Salah, then you will enter Jannah through Salah. If you are inclined to say Tawbah, you will enter Jannah through the doors of Babu Tawbah, and so on and so forth. And it comes in a hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that I hope that Sayyiduna Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu will enter Jannah through all the 8 doors of Jannah. Because Sayyidina Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu was such a person that he did all 8, that his iman was strong. He did a lot of jihad, he sacrificed his life, his wealth in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He suppressed his anger. He also observed fasting. He also remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gave a lot of optional charity, did a lot of tawbah, also read many optional prayers. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that Sayyidina Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu will be such an individual who will enter Jannah and paradise through all 8 doors of paradise. And you may be thinking that how can that be possible? Because obviously as soon as you enter through one door, then that's it, you're in Jannah. So how can the other 8 doors, how are you going to enter? So scholars have written that what will happen for Sayyidina Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu is that as soon as he enters Jannah through one gate, then another gate, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put another gate in front of him. So he will enter Jannah and another gate. Or after he passes all 8 gates, then he will enter Jannah and he will enter paradise. Now in paradise, in Jannah, there will be many, many blessings. There will be many, many ni'mah. And it's mentioned in many hadith that there will be no suffering in Jannah. There will be no pain. There will be no diseases in paradise and Jannah. There will be no need for people to go to the toilet and pass urine or pass stool or anything like that. All these things will go. There will be no pain. There will be no difficulty. There will be no kind of illnesses, diseases, which kind of strikes the person in this world and keeps him kind of embedded for like years and years and years. All these things will not happen in paradise. As soon as a person enters paradise, then all these anxiety he had in this world, that will all evaporate, that will all be eradicated, and this person will be, as mentioned in the various hadiths, that he will have an everlasting youth. And it's mentioned in the hadith of Sunan Tirmidhi that a person who enters Jannah, he will be at one particular age, and the age is 33 years old. That this person, he will be 33 years old. Everyone in Jannah will be 33 years old. Okay, there will be, even if you may have died, younger than that, or even if you may have died above that, but you'll only be 33 years old. And the reason why 33 years old is, the scholars have written that up to the age of 33, you kind of slowly grow. That you're always growing up to the age of 33. And then from 33 to 40, there's like a stop, there's like a pause. You don't grow anymore. That's it, you're just normally the same. That's why if you see a guy at the age of 33, and they don't see him, say, for 6 years, then he probably, more or less, his features will be more or less the same. And then after the age of 40, that's when slowly he becomes weak all the way until he's dead. So that's because of that reason, scholars have written, and it's mentioned in the hadith of Sunan Tirmidhi, that a person in Jannah, in paradise, will be of the age of 33 years old, that he'll only be 33 years old. And also, there will be other ni'mah and other blessings as well. A person who will have many like high castles, many tents. He will drink from gold, silver, plate, utensils. A person who will be wearing, different types of clothing made out of silk, gold, and so on. There will be trees, and these are like big, massive trees, which take, according to hadith, 70 years to pass. There will be different kind of rivers in Jannah and paradise. And as mentioned in the Quran, that there will be 4 main types of rivers in Jannah and paradise. One will be full of honey, one will be full of alcohol, wine, one will be full of milk, and another will be full of water, and a person will drink from these rivers to his full. Whenever he desires something, if he desires a particular dish, then that will be put, or that will be bought in front of him in Jannah, in paradise. In this world, if you say desire to eat fish and chips for lunch, then you can't just have it in front of you. You have to go to the shop, and then when you go to the shop, you probably have to wait in a queue for a while, and then you get your fish and chips. But in Jannah, in paradise, whatever dish you like, whatever dish you desire, as soon as you desire in your heart, that's it. The dish, the meal will come right in front of you, prepared, cooked, ready to eat, ready for you to consume. So that is the difference between Jannah and paradise. That whatever you want in Jannah, you will get it there and then, ready-made, straight from the oven. Whereas in this world, you need to do everything. You need to cook the meat. You need to cook this and cook that. And then after that, you'll get your particular dish. Before we look at the next ni'mah of the Hurayyin, I'll just very briefly just mention or just give you a hadith or narrate a hadith to you from Sahih al-Muslim, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the last person to enter Jannah. That the last person to enter Jannah, this is the ni'mah and the blessing he will get. So hopefully, inshallah, we won't be one of the people to enter Jannah, paradise last. We'll be, inshallah, one of the first people to enter Jannah and paradise. So if the person who's entering Jannah, paradise, is receiving this much ni'mah and blessing, so you can imagine that the person who's entering Jannah, firstly, what ni'mah and what blessings will he receive? Now it comes in a hadith of Sahih al-Muslim that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has said that a person, the last person to enter Jannah, will be a person who had been in the fire of hell for many years. Could have been hundreds, thousands, millions of years. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And this person would have been literally roasted, tormented in the fire of hell. He would be burnt to, basically he will be like charcoal. So burnt, he will be literally roasted, and this person will be told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that your punishment has now come to an end, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell this person to leave Jahannam, to leave the fire of hell, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will order this person to go to Jannah and paradise. And it comes in a hadith that this person, he will crawl his way out of Jahannam. He will crawl his way out of the fire of hell. He will crawl his way out of the fire of hell, and then he will regain, it's like a baby that slowly when they start crawling, but then they manage, with some support, they manage to get up to their feet and then they can walk for a bit and then they fall down. So this how this person will be. That he is in the fire of hell, he will crawl his way out of fire of hell. And then when whatever he can, he will try to get up and he will, take a few tentative steps forward, but because of the sheer velocity of the fire behind it, the breeze will put him down. So like this, he will crawl, stumble his way out of Jahannam and out of fire of hell. And he will look back and he will see the fire of hell and he will think to himself that today there's no going back to fire of hell, that today is like freedom, all the tortures, the burning, everything, the pus which I was made to drink, the blood of people which I drank from, the different types, the eating of the fruit from the zaqqum, the thorny tree. He thinks to himself that that's it, over. The torture, the punishment is over. So this person will leave Jahannam, will leave the fire of hell. Then this person will see a tree. And this tree will be so big, so massive. The shade will, as I mentioned in the hadith, will take 70 years for a rider to pass. That's how big this tree will be. And he will see next to a tree that there are rivers there with delicious water, and he will think to himself that if I could go next to this tree and just take a rest, just take a nap, drink from the water of this particular tree. So he will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, can I go near to this tree? Can I go next to this tree, lie down next to this tree and take the shade from the beautiful branches of this tree, drink from the beautiful water of this particular river? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to him that, oh son of Adam, are you going to make any other promises afterwards? If I give you this, would you make any other promises afterwards? So this person will reply by saying that, no, this is the only thing I am asking for you, Allah. I won't make any other promises afterwards. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant him this wish, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make this person, will order that person to go and sit near this tree and take the shade from this particular tree and drink from the delicious and the beautiful water which is gushing nearby. After a while, this individual will again see another tree, which is more beautiful than the first tree. Again, the branches are more beautiful than the first tree. The shade is more bigger. The water which is next to it is more beautiful and delicious than the first water. So again, this individual will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that, oh Allah, can I go next to this second tree? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remind this person of the promise which he made, and he will say that you made a promise that you're not going to ask me for anything else. But this person will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being the most merciful, will give this person the second tree, will tell that person to go next to the second tree and to take the shade from this tree, drink from the delicious waters and so on. And then after that, this individual again will see a third type of tree. Again, more beautiful than the first two trees. Again, the water, the river which is next to it, the water which is there is more delicious and beautiful than the first two rivers. Again, he will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, can I go next to this tree? Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remind him of the promises which he made, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being the most merciful, will grant his wishes. After the third tree, this individual will now see, because obviously he's moving forward, so this person will now see the gates of Jannah. And he can see paradise, he can feel paradise, he can, hear the people enjoying themselves. He can hear the singing of the people, the singing of the Hura'in and the heavenly wives and so on. It's like, for example, when you go to a fun fair and Alton Towers, so you're all outside. So you could hear everybody enjoying themselves outside and think, as soon as I get off this coach, and I'm going to go straight in and go to the various rides and so on. So it's like this person will be like full of all the kind of passion to go inside Jannah paradise. He could see, he could smell the fragrance, he could see the beautiful blessings of paradise and Jannah, and he will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, can I enter paradise, can I enter Jannah? Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remind him of all the promises which he made. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being the most merciful, will grant this person Jannah and will grant this person paradise. And it's come in the hadith that the paradise will be twice the size of this earth. And in another narration it says it will be 10 times as big as this world. So this is Jannah for a person who, the very final person to enter Jannah. He will receive a Jannah, he will receive his Jannah, his paradise will be twice as big as this world, or in another narration of Tirmidhi, it will be 10 times as big as this world. So if the last person of Jannah is going to receive this, then you could imagine those who will be one of the first people to enter Jannah, the blessings, the ni'mah they will get, the size of their Jannah, the size of their paradise, how big it will be, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Now another ni'mah or another blessing of Jannah or paradise is the Hura'in. And the Hura'in, they are known as the heavenly wives. And Hura'in, the word Hur, just the word Hur, it's Arabic word, literally means a woman who is young, gorgeous, or a woman who is gorgeous, or a woman who is beautiful. So the word Hur literally means a young woman, or a gorgeous woman, or a woman who is beautiful. Whereas the word Ain means big, attractive eye. So from the Hura'in, just from this particular word, the Hura'in, it means that the Jannatis are the people who will enter Jannah and Paradise. They will receive such women who will be young, beautiful, gorgeous, and on top of that, their eyes will be big and attractive. So that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for the men, for the Jannatis who will enter Paradise. The famous Sahabi, Sayyiduna Ibn Abbas anhu, and similarly the very famous Mufassir of the Holy Quran, Imam Mujahid, has written that the Hura'in have been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through or made from saffron. That the Hura'in have been made from or have been created from saffron. Now if we just analyze this particular view or this particular opinion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described human beings as Ahsanul Khaliqeen, as the best of all the creation. And we have been created from mud. We have been created from dust. So you could imagine the Hura'in who have been created from saffron, which is a night and day difference between saffron and mud, how beautiful and how gorgeous these creatures and these women will be in Jannah and in Paradise. If they have been created from saffron, and obviously it's mentioned in many verses in the Holy Quran that they have been described as khayratun hisan, then you could imagine how beautiful they will be. It's mentioned in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Rahman, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Fihinna khayratun hisan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describing Jannah, and he's saying that in Jannah, in Paradise, there will be women, khayrat, who will be good, hisan, and they will be gorgeous. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. So which of the bounties of your Lord do you deny? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say, Hurum maqsuratun fil khiyam. That there will be these Hura'in, who will be hidden or who will be guarded in their tent. Maqsuratun fil khiyam, meaning that no other man has seen them, no one else has seen them. They have just been created and made specially for you. مقصورات في الخيام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان. And no any humans and no any jinnat have ever touched them. Meaning that these women have been created specially for you. No other man has looked at them, no other man has even touched them. These people, these Hura'in, these heavenly wives have been created just specially for you. So again, this is another ni'mah and a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is also mentioned further in the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the Hura'in by saying that they will be so beautiful, they will be so pure, they will be so transparent that the marrow of the bones of their legs will be seen through their flesh. Meaning that they will be so transparent that the marrow which is in your bones, you'll be able to see that. Indicating towards their purity, their chastity. No, they haven't been touched by any men or anything like that. They have been made specially and created specially for you. Now a normal person, when he enters Jannah, he will get two worldly wives. From this world he will get two worldly wives, and he will also get two Hura'in, as mentioned in the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari. Whereas a shaheed, a martyr, he will get 72 heavenly wives. And this is deduced or derived from a hadith of Sunan al-Tirmidhi, where the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that a martyr has 6 blessings with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 1, he will be forgiven from the first drop of blood shed. That before the blood drops to the floor, this person, all his previous sins will be forgiven. Number two, before this blood is falls on the floor, then he will be shown his abode and his place in paradise. Number three, he will be protected from the torment of the grave. He will be protected from the azab-e-qabr. Number four, a crown of dignity will be placed on his head. Number five, he will be married to 72 wives from the Hura'in. And number six, he will intercede for 70 of his relatives. So that is the difference, that a normal Jannati, a normal person will get 2 Hura'in and he will get 2 worldly wives, whereas a Shaheed, a martyr, will get 72 heavenly wives. Now, there may be some sisters who are listening on the scanner and probably in the mosque as well, and they may be thinking to themselves that if the men are going to get 72 heavenly wives, or if the men are going to get 2, then what are we going to get? Now, obviously, the answer to that is that, firstly, it's against the chastity, or it's against the nature of women to have many partners, or to have many husbands. And obviously, I'll mention this particular point when we look at Surah An-Nisa, and when there's the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that men are allowed to marry 4 times. And the most common question posed by women, or many people, is that, why aren't women allowed to marry 4 husbands? So as I said, it's against the chastity and the nature of women to have many sexual partners. It's against their norm, it's against their chastity to have many partners. So similarly here as well, that a woman, she will not have a Hura'in version, but in a man's version, a male version of a Hura'in. She won't have that in Jannah. But what she will have is that she will have a husband, and she will be made the queen of the Hura'in. That she will be made more beautiful than the Hura'in. I've described how beautiful the Hura'in are, but the women, the Jannati woman, will be with her husband, and she will be made their queen, and she will be more beautiful than them. And this is mentioned in a hadith of Tabrani, where Sayyida Salama radhiyallahu anha, she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding the women of this world, that are they superior than the Hura'in? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replies by saying that no, the women of this world are more superior than the Hura'in. Why? Because the women in this world, they do namaz, they read namaz, they fast, they give zakat, they give charity and so on. And because of these actions, that will increase their beauty and their light and their nur in the day of judgment and in paradise. So therefore, a woman should be made more beautiful than the Hura'in. She will be with her husband, and she will be made the queen of the Hura'in, and she will be made the queen of paradise. Now, obviously, another question which may arise here is that, just say if a woman had more than one husband in this world, meaning that a woman, she had one husband and then the husband passed away, and then she goes and marries another husband, then what will happen to her? Would she be with 2 husbands or not? So the masla the ulamas have written is that in this situation, either number one, she'll be with the last husband. So whichever husband was the last before she passed away, she'll be with him on the day of judgment, or in paradise, in Jannah, obviously with the condition that both of them are granted paradise and Jannah. So that's one view, one opinion. The second opinion is that she will choose between them 2. That whoever she wants to stay with, whether it's the first husband she married and then he passed away, or the second husband, then whoever she wants or desires, then she will get that in Jannah, in paradise. And another opinion is, some scholars have said, that out of those 2 husbands, whoever was the most religious, or whoever had the best characteristics and the best akhlaq, then that woman will be with that particular husband on the day in paradise and in the hereafter. And as for those women who passed away without marrying, or who passed away probably divorced, they divorced from their first husband and so on. So as I mentioned before, that a person in this world, when he goes to Jannah, inshallah, he will have 2 Hura'in, and on top of that he will have 2 worldly wives. So those women who passed away without having a husband, or they passed away divorced from a husband, then obviously in the day of judgment, in paradise, if they are granted paradise and Jannah, they will be either they will marry with one of these Jannatis, with one of the people of Jannah. Whoever they wish, they could marry one of these people of Jannah. Inshallah, we'll just leave it here for this week. Inshallah, there's a few things which I need to mention before we finish the lesson. So, with regards to the Jannah topic, inshallah, we'll leave it here for this week. Now, just a few questions which we need to look at before Eid starts next Friday. A few mas'ala which some brothers and some people have asked. The first mas'ala which some brothers have asked is with regards to the clipping of the nail. That as soon as Dhul Hijjah starts, the hadith narrated by Sayyidah Salama radiallahu anha, the hadith of Sunan Abu Dawud, that she says that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that whoever intends to slaughter an animal, then he should not clip his hair. He should not clip his nails upon the sighting of the moon of Dhul Hijjah, i.e. from the first of Dhul Hijjah all the way until he sacrificed the animal. He shouldn't cut his nails, he shouldn't cut his hair, and so on and so forth. Now the scholars have said that it's only mustahab to do that. You don't have to do it. It's not necessary, it's not compulsory for you to abstain from cutting your nails, abstain from cutting your hair from the 1st of Dhul Hijjah all the way until you do your qurbani on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. It's only mustahab to do that. And the reason why it's mustahab is that so that there may be some similarities and some tashabbuh with those who are going for Hajj. Because those who are going for Hajj, as soon as they put on the ihram, all the way until the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, when they sacrifice the animal and then they shave their head and they feed from the ihram, you are not allowed to clip your nails, you are not allowed to remove any hair from your mustache or below your armpits and so on. So to imitate the pilgrims, those who are in the state of ihram, this hadith was mentioned. So therefore it's only considered mustahab to do this and not considered as wajib or obligatory or anything like that. So that is the first particular point. The second particular point was with regard to the fasting on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, i.e. on the day of Arafah. So it's considered as a sunnah, okay, a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, desirable if you have the ability to fast on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which is this Thursday, because Eid's on Friday, which is the 10th. So the day before, i.e. the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, i.e. the day of Arafah, it's considered a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to fast on that day. And it's mentioned in the hadith of Sahih al-Muslim and Sunan Abu Dawud that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that whoever fasts on the day of Arafah, then 2 years' sins will be forgiven. The previous year's sins will be forgiven and the following year's sins will be forgiven. So that is the fazilah, that is the virtue of fasting on day of Arafah. That the year before, like 2008 to 2009, all your sins which you did, that will be forgiven. And similarly from 2009 to 2010, your sins will be forgiven as well. And he goes on to say, the next part of the hadith is that fasting on the day of Ashura, i.e. the 10th of Muharram, then obviously your previous sins, the previous year's sins will be forgiven. So that is the second issue. And the third issue, very quickly, is regarding the Eid namaz. Now obviously everyone knows how to read the Eid namaz, and on the day they do announce how to read the Eid namaz. But what we're going to look at here is if you come late for Eid namaz. And this has happened to some brothers that obviously in the morning probably they wake up late and so on, and everybody likes to come for the first Jamaat. So what happens is that many of the brothers, they come for the first congregation, and many of you come late, like you miss one rakat and so on. So the question is that how do you do qaza of that one rakat? That when the Imam does salam and you stand up, how do you read it? Now the reason why you need to look at this masla is because of the extra takbir which you have to do. Because as you know, in the Hanafi fiqh, the extra 3 takbir you do in the first rakat and in the second rakat, it's wajib to do it. If you miss it, obviously, your Eid namaz will be incomplete. Now the scholars have written that there's 4 situations altogether. The first situation is that if you come for the first rakat and the Imam has already done his 3 extra takbir. So just for example, Imam has done his 3 extra takbir and is in Surah Fatiha now, and then you join the Imam. Now in that situation, what will you do is, you will join the namaz, Allahu Akbar, and then Allahu Akbar, do the 3 extra takbir. Allahu Akbar, and then just continue with the namaz. So that is the first situation. The second situation is that you join the Imam in ruku. That the Imam is in the first rakat, but he's just gone into ruku. Allahu Akbar, he's gone into the ruku position. And then you join the Imam. Now in that situation, the masla is that you say takbir tahlima, Allahu Akbar, and you go into ruku. And in ruku, you do the 3 takbir without raising your hand. So you won't raise your hand, but in ruku you will say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Because the actual takbir is wajib, whereas raising the hand is only sunnah. So you will omit the sunnah, and what will you do is, you will act upon the wajib, and that is the 3 extra takbir. You do it in the ruku state and in the ruku position. So that is the second situation. And obviously, just say for example, like you go into ruku, and you only manage to do 1 takbir. You only manage to say Allahu Akbar, and the Imam has stood up for the Qawma, Sami Allahu liman hamida, then that will be okay. The 2 takbir, which that will become mark, and that will be forgiven. And the third situation is that if you join the Imam in the second rakat, so you missed 1 rakat, the Imam is now in his second rakat. So obviously, you'll have to just join the namaz, Allahu Akbar. So you join the namaz, you don't do any takbir there. And then when the Imam finishes his namaz, he does his salam, so you will get up, because you've missed the first rakat. So you will get up, and what will you do in that rakat? You will read firstly Surah Fatiha, Surah, and then before you go into ruku, you will do your 3 extra takbir. Okay? Unlike the way you do it in the first rakat, where you have to do the 3 takbir first and then Surah Fatiha, Surah. But when you come to do qaza of it as a masbook, as a latecomer, you only read Surah Fatiha, Surah, and then before you go into ruku, you do your 3 extra takbir. And then you just finish up your namaz as normal. And the fourth situation, which is very straightforward, that is that if you miss all your 2 rakats, like you come in tashahhud position, Imam is in tashahhud, and then you join the Imam, then you stand up and you just do qaza of the remaining 2 rakats as if you are reading Eid namaz. So you stand up, 3 extra takbir, Surah Fatiha, Surah, go for the second rakat, Surah Fatiha, Surah, and then before you go into ruku, you do the 3 extra takbir. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to accept what has been said. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. You know, if Eid is on Saturday, are you going to have to